Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ground Truth, a Phantom Auto podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Kern. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the show. Today, we're discussing who Phantom Auto is and their teleoperation solution. What is it? You'll have to listen to the rest of the episode to find out, as I'm talking to Jordan Sanders, the VP of Business and Marketing at Phantom Auto. Jordan, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks, Tyler. Excited to be on with you.
Well, we're excited to have you, excited to get this episode going. So, Jordan, let's start off here. Just give the audience an idea of who Phantom Auto is and what your mission as a company is.
Yeah, sure. So Phantom Auto is a company that provides remote operation software for all types of vehicles. And when I say remote operation, I mean providing the ability for humans sitting 10, 100, even thousands of miles away from a vehicle on a site to actually remotely operate a vehicle on that site. And when I say all types of vehicles, our customer base includes logistics operators who are operating forklifts, yard trucks, robots for delivery and security and other applications, and even cars, so actually robotaxis and passenger vehicles. So we provide an interoperable solution to enable, again, remote operation of all of those vehicles. And really across all those applications, what our software really delivers for customers is kind of transforming their operations and virtualizing their operations.
That's really fascinating. And from my perspective, you work with so many different areas and so many different industries, really, when you talk about forklifts, deliveries, all of these different things. What pain points were you noticing in these industries that you're trying to help address and really help out with? Kind of give me the idea of what the genesis of this idea was.
Yeah. So there's really, I'd say there's two major trends happening in, I'd say, transportation broadly. One is the advent of autonomous vehicles, and autonomous vehicles, that's not just robotaxis, though I'd say robotaxis have really made a lot of headlines in the last few years, and you've seen an influx of venture capital money, et cetera, and major investments from corporations into that realm. What we're really seeing is kind of a trickle down or an explosion sort of say the commoditization of sensors and software to enable autonomous applications or autonomous vehicles to be really first scaled in what we would term industrial logistics applications, things like trucks and forklifts and robots operating in and around warehouses. So that's kind of one piece of it. And the other piece is really the labor shortage and the kind of need highlighted, frankly, by COVID for supply chain resilience. And so those kind of two major trends of the proliferation and promise of autonomous technology, and that paired with really this need for companies and logistics operators to provide more opportunity to their labor force, to actually expand their labor pool, et cetera. Those are kind of the two major trends driving adoption of our technology. And the main reason for that is that there are kind of two ways that our technology is applied. One is to kind of enable the greatest uptime and safety and reliability of an autonomous vehicle. So an autonomous vehicle, let's take an autonomous robot, for example. If an autonomous robot is operating autonomously and something weird happens, something unexpected happens, it's not sure how to proceed, that autonomous robot can stop, actually connect to a remote person sitting, again, up to hundreds or thousands of miles away even. And that person can take a look at the scenario and help the robot navigate around it. That can look like actually driving the robot with a steering wheel or with some joysticks, maybe providing an input. But fundamentally, you're helping the autonomous system navigate through a scenario and then continue to navigate autonomously. So that's one application of our technology. The second application, and really where we're seeing a lot of demand and a lot of growth, is actually in fully remotely operated vehicles. And that really is where you have a person and a bank of people who, again, are sitting hundreds to thousands of miles away, and they can take control and say drive a forklift exactly the way they would if they were sitting inside that forklift. And at the click of a button, they can connect to a forklift in site A, complete a job, complete a series of jobs. Once that job is done, click of another button, that same person can kind of teleport to another entirely different site, maybe an entirely different vehicle, and do the job. And what that does is it really just kind of transforms what your workforce is able to do. It has huge implications for your operations, for the day-to-day, experience of your workers. And of course, underlying all of this is increasing safety, right? And so if you can remove a human from, say, a warehouse environment and put them in a comfortable office, again, you kind of change the nature of that person's job. And obviously, there's a lot of increased safety because you're removing a human from a potentially hazardous environment.
That's a really good point. Now, I wanted to talk about that safety aspect, but one of the things that I think about now is, what does this look like from the driver's side? Do they do this from a regular, like a keyboard, or is there a joystick or something like that? Kind of talk me through what the interface and what the experience is for a driver.
Yeah, good question. So it actually varies across vehicle types exactly what, say, the hardware or the user interface, the software user interface looks like. So we have customers, let's say, in the delivery robot space who are using just a single monitor, even a laptop, and using a joystick, so a handheld controller. We also have some customers who are actually using the keys on the keyboard to remotely oversee and operate delivery robots. For forklifts, typically it's a single monitor, and maybe of whatever size kind of our customers choosing, and typically a steering wheel and a joystick. But really, the way that we've designed our software is to be extremely flexible to enable all types of interfaces and again, we select interfaces both physical and software based on the vehicle type that you're operating, based on the environment that vehicle will be operating in, and really based on customer preference as well. One of the things we've really focused on is making sure that the requirements for that remote operator console are not extremely stringent. That this is all commodity hardware. It's literally stuff that is already in, say, the procurement cycle, say, of our customers. We're talking standard monitors, standard computer, and again, very kind of commoditized, even controller types, whether it's a steering wheel, joysticks, or something else. And that's really key for scalability. And what that also has enabled some of our customers to do is even to have their remote operators work from home. So actually have at-home setups where they can do this job. And that's, again, it's really exciting, and it's actually one of the things that we saw come about due to COVID. One of our existing customers, this is public information. One of our customers, Postmates, who again is a delivery robot customer, they had previously had remote operators sitting in a centralized remote control center, so coming into an office every day and sitting at desks next to colleagues to remotely oversee their delivery robots. The onset of COVID, obviously, suddenly they were under the same constraint that everyone else was of, do we have people come into the office or not? And so they shifted to a fully distributed remote operator workforce and having all of their remote operators work from home. And because of the kind of flexibility of our software and our technology, it was very easy for them to do that and to still, importantly, maintain efficient kind of oversight of those remote operators and kind of managing those remote operations.
That's really, really incredible. So can this be, can like, let's take the example of a forklift or something like that. Can that be retrofitted to, to be able to utilize your software and the hardware that you provide and that sort of thing? Or does this go on new models and that sort of thing?
Yeah, good question. So the way that we've designed our software is to be OEM agnostic, or no matter what the make and model of the vehicle, it's likely that our software can integrate. We typically do work on, let's say, newer vehicles, those that are, especially in forklifts, that are electric and have some form of drive-by-wire interface, or the ability to kind of digitally or electronically control the vehicle. So those are typically newer models, but really one of the reasons that we're so, again, because we work across so many spaces, when we look at forklifts and we look at this industry, because there actually is kind of broad electrification, and there is this, really, I think forklifts are kind of ahead of the game compared to some other logistics and industrial vehicle types in the drive-by-wire, that ability to actually, control the vehicle in a more kind of seamless way. that's, it's actually one of the big advantages we think of kind of working in this market. But for us, really, fundamentally, again, what we provide is this interoperable software that enables humans to oversee all types of vehicles in a logistics operator's fleet. So it's real, that flexibility and integrability is really, really important, and it's why we designed the product in a way that truly the same software can be, is dropped onto let's say a Mitsubishi Logisnext forklift, where we have a partnership with them. That same software can be dropped into forklifts from, say, Fenwick Lindy, another one of our OEM partners who we are working with to serve customers like Geodis and others in the EU. So very flexible, and I'd say that's, again, it's a big advantage of our software and of our technology, is that it doesn't have really stringent, let's say, hardware requirements, and it does have that flexible architecture.
So, Jordan, one of the things you said just then that I thought was really interesting was that, a single person can obviously operate, multiple different machines throughout the course of a day, right? And I suppose when you hear people talk about, the future, what facilities are going to look like and that sort of thing, I think people always picture robots that just drive themselves around and do that sort of thing. But it seems that what you're doing is almost more innovative and more important to me, because it keeps human beings at the center of the vehicles, right? Like it's still a human that's in control of things, but it's just in a different location. A, keeping them safer, and B, allowing them to do multiple different things throughout a day. Was that important to you when you were considering, okay, what are these solutions going to look like? Keeping human beings at the center and still utilizing human, the way that humans are going to drive one of these vehicles. Was that important to you guys?
Yeah. By the way, we're hiring for sales. By the way, you really get it. That's fundamentally what, no matter what, where our software is being applied. Our goal, our customers' goals, and our view of the future is that humans will be at the center of this future. And I don't think that's, we don't view that as it shouldn't be a shocking claim, and it should be something that I think we all actually want, right? Technology of any type is an incredible lever for human output, right? And for what humans want to accomplish. And so as we start looking, say you mentioned the warehouse environments, and as you start talking about, say, lights out warehouses, which is what a lot of our customers, envision in the future, is having, even potentially, say, no one on the factory floor, right? Again, I think that is a long way away. But we don't see a future where that is what the warehouse looks like, and there's not a whole lot of humans enabling that operation. So robots are great, and autonomous technology and autonomous robots, are great. They have a lot of promise. But fundamentally, they do the jobs that humans tell them to do, right? And when there are exceptions, when the robots, say, get confused or need help, humans are really, really good at figuring out what's going on, figuring out what, and taking a look at a situation and resolving it. And if you kind of work in this autonomous technology space, you both know the promise and the amazing capabilities of autonomous vehicles, but you also know that there, are some limitations, right? Especially to scalability, and especially to thinking about rolling out autonomous systems broadly, right, in your operations. In order for a logistics operator to do that, you have to have confidence that, no matter what happens, that, trailer is going to get loaded, that trailer is going to get unloaded, right? So really, our view of the future is that humans will be in control of the robots. And that is actually how we are going to, we and our customers are going to enable a lot greater output and kind of to really enable the future that we all want. And so, yeah, that's really our core focus. It's human-centered technology, and it's something that I think we can all, kind of rally around. And frankly, for me, I just see it's not only a practical reality that must be the case for it to scale, but I think it's really good news, essentially, for us that, hey, these robots are, going to be under our control, not the other way around. We're not at the service of the robots; they're at the service of us.
Yeah, it's not going to be an iRobot situation where we need Will Smith to save the day. We're still in control, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah, that's an excellent point. So let's talk about deployment. How difficult is it to deploy this type of technology? You kind of mentioned earlier that it's that you're OEM agnostic and things along those lines. Just talk to me about how difficult, what the timeline is, and that sort of thing when it comes to deployment in a particular facility.
Yeah, good question. So, because our technology, again, it has a human brain and intuition, behind it. They're really, in terms of say hardware, software, we have really quick time to deployment. So, and the other thing I'd say is that because often what our customers are doing is, again, they're taking an existing vehicle type, an existing driver, let's say an existing process, right? And essentially all that you're doing is you're now taking the human out of that, off the floor and putting them somewhere else. And since that's what our technology enables, there's not a lot of say change management, right? Or, okay, how are we going to like redo all of our process flows, right? Our customers, have the option from really day one, really keeping the exact same operational process flows that they have today. Because again, you still have a human in the loop, you still have a human sitting remotely who's able to oversee or control that whole process. And then over time, let's say as their operations change, maybe as other robots are operating in the warehouse, and they do have these organizational or kind of process changes, right? They're able to make those again quite flexibly because they have a human, right, who they're able to actually just say, hey, today, instead of going down this lane, right, go down that lane. And it's that simple. It's that simple. There's no, deploy new code. There's no, we need to remap something, right? You have that human flexibility to again run your operations as you do today, but just with greater efficiency and greater safety.
I guess one of the things I think about, especially as we were talking about, keeping humans at the center of things and that sort of thing, is that there's a huge generation of people coming that are probably younger than you and I right now, but that have grown up with esports and video games and that sort of thing. And I almost wonder if technology like this, it really is going to be, just such a motivator for a new generation to get into these particular areas of work in the marketplace. That might be a stretch, but just thinking about the way that the younger generations interact with technology and that sort of thing, this seems to be something that I think a lot of people would be interested in doing and might create a new wave of employees into particular areas that right now are kind of seeing maybe a lack of employees and that sort of thing. I don't know. That's just a thought of mine.
100%. It's not crazy. It's what we're seeing and enabling every day. And it's really exciting. I'd say we get this question a lot of like, who makes the best remote operator, right? Like who are these people, right? And what are their kind of profiles? So we really see kind of two different types of people who make great remote operators. One is what you mentioned, kind of, let's call them digital natives, right? So people, like you said, who are very familiar with playing video games, working on computers, et cetera. That's type one. And if you're that type of person, then, the gap from, okay, I know how to play, say, a video game to now I can learn how a forklift operates, how the warehouse operations work. We see those people as being really good remote operators. And of course, they need to become very familiar with all of the safety procedures, et cetera, involved and the safety implications. It's certainly different to play a video game than it is to really, to control a vehicle remotely. That's kind of one type. The other type is, I'd say, folks who've been operating forklifts or these types of vehicles for years and years, right? So they're very familiar with how a forklift operates, what a warehouse environment looks like. And then with just a little bit of training and familiarization, of what it's like to sit remotely and do that, we see really kind of quick slope of kind of learning, and really within a day or two, a lot of comfort kind of operating in that way. So anyway, but back to your point about digital natives, it's really one of the a key kind of value proposition and kind of one of those key drivers of return on investment that our customers are looking at is expanding the labor pool. There's not a lot of young folks who dream of, say, being forklift operators, right? But this is it's not only cool, right? But it's something that they can see that, I do this job today. This job is going to be around tomorrow, a year from now, 5 years from now, right? Because they know that today they may be remotely driving, a forklift. In 5 years, they may be remotely driving multiple types of forklifts, or maybe just overseeing, the autonomous operation of a number of vehicles. So it's a future-proof job that younger populations not only find cool and interesting and exciting, but also, future-proof, and it's going to be around.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. You explained that much better than I was struggling to, but yeah, that's exactly kind of what I was getting at, and that makes a lot of sense. And so, Jordan, can you share any maybe client success stories with us? I know you've mentioned a couple of clients already. Just curious just about how this has been rolled out and what it's looked like in practice with some of your clients and some of your partners.
Yeah, for sure. So happy to share a few stories, and really excited that really in the coming weeks, even and months, we have even more kind of client success stories that we'll be able to speak about and share with you. But I think one that comes to mind and was kind of recently in the news is our relationship with Geodis. So Geodis is a large 3PL or third-party logistics company. They're a global company based in France. And we've been working with them really over the last 2 years to deploy fully remotely operated forklifts. And I mentioned, about the value proposition of expanding the labor force and expanding opportunity for Geodis. That is the number one driver of their kind of investment in this technology and rolling out this technology is tapping into new labor pools. So they geographically isolated. You no longer, for Geodis, they're now able to actually hire operators, right, that aren't, say within driving distance of a given warehouse. I think most importantly, expanding opportunities to demographics such as women and even the disabled populations that typically are underrepresented, right, in the logistics industry. And so for them, that was really the number one value prop is, hey, let's provide more opportunity to our workforce. Let's bring more people into Geodis, right? Let's bring women into the workforce. Let's bring opportunities for disabled folks to actually do this job and work, to enable our operations. So that's been really, really exciting and really, kind of a privilege to work with Geodis, in that way, and to see the fruits of our labor and actually see, again, women remote operators, the disabled remote operators, people who otherwise just would not have even thought to work in the industry or would not have even physically been able to work, say in a warehouse. So that's a really great use case, and we're seeing a lot of promise in not only the again expanding the the labor access, but also just increasing the efficiency and productivity. You mentioned earlier, kind of clicking the button and being able to teleport between vehicles and between sites. That's exactly how Geodis is kind of rolling out our technology, is remote control centers. Where, again, if you're kind of able to tap into the central bank of labor that can be deployed efficiently across hours, days, or weeks, right, across Geodis's very broad network, so that you have labor when and where you need it. And again, it just unlocks all sorts of productivity increases, and again, the safety gains as well of just removing humans from those potentially hazardous environments and giving them this, enhanced work experience of being able to sit remotely in a comfortable office, interact with colleagues in that way, and maybe sip their coffee in between trailer loads and unloads.
No kidding. That does sound incredible, and that's a fantastic story to share with us. Just a great example of utilizing the technology and being able to do some amazing things with it. So, Jordan, as we wrap up today, do you have any final thoughts, any conclusions, or any summaries that you'd like to leave our audience with here as we begin to wrap up this episode? Just tie a nice bow on this episode for us, will you?
All right. I like the challenge. Let me reach into my box of tricks. Okay, I think I got one. No. So no, I think that, one of the things that we're really seeing is that COVID, this crisis that was upon us, in some ways is still upon us, and we're all hoping is being lifted. It really caused a shock to everyone's personal lives and definitely to the supply chain, right? And we're seeing that customers, are recognizing that they really have to, act now in order to be ready for whatever may come in the future. Hopefully it's not a health crisis, but really just the all of the demands that are now on our supply chain, they have to invest in more resilient operations. It's actually a central mandate even of the Biden administration to invest in supply chain resilience. So I think one of the thing that motivates us as a company, it certainly is part of what's fueling even some of our growth. But what really motivates us is that this very, very bad thing of the COVID-19 crisis, as we sit here in 21, and may drag in the COVID-19, it may drag into 22. But one of the kind of outcomes of that, and one of the things we're focused on, is making sure that kind of good comes from that, right? And I think there's a lot of potentially good things, or really good things, that are coming out of the crisis. People are having the ability to work remotely, right? If you're a white collar worker, you probably experienced COVID. You were able to work from home. Right. Of course, there are some disruptions in your day to day, but it was probably a relatively smooth transition. And we think that's going to be a persistent transition in how people work. We think a similar transition is happening, should happen, needs to happen for blue collar workers. So blue collar workers can and should have similar privileges and opportunity that white collar workers do. And we really see that things, what may be counterintuitive, forklift operator is going to become a somewhat white collar job, right? And I think that kind of vision, and again, we're really at the forefront of kind of enabling that and making that happen, and seeing it now happen with our customers. We really see that there's all sorts of good and positive outcomes that can come from that COVID-19 crisis, both on the worker side, again, white collar privileges for what were previously blue collar jobs. And on the logistics operator side, again, investing in the supply chain resilience, tapping into a broader labor force, bringing more people in, and kind of again having that sort of flexibility that we needed in in the future to ensure the safest and kind of most productive operations. So I don't know if that exactly tied it up with a ribbon, but I think that, as the world's thinking remote, we see logistics operations also going remote. And we think that there is great opportunities for logistics operators and for people to actually be part of making this future happen. And that's what motivates me every day. And that's what motivates Phantom as we're working with all of our customers is kind of working with them to make that future a reality.
I think that's a fantastic ribbon that you've pulled out of your box of tricks to tie this episode with. So fantastic stuff. Great stuff, Jordan. Jordan Sanders, VP of Business and Marketing at Phantom Auto. Jordan, where can people go to find more information about Phantom Auto? If they have questions, if they'd like to reach out to you, where should they go? Where can they find more?
Yeah, you can find all sorts of information and videos and press and things like that on our website at phantomauto.com. And for anyone interested in having a conversation about how remote operation can impact your operations, or even perhaps trying out the technology, we'll ship you a steering wheel so you can remotely operate a forklift in our warehouse. You can get in touch with us at contact@phantomauto.com.
Excellent stuff. Jordan Sanders, VP of Business and Marketing at Phantom Auto. Get in touch with them and go visit their website today. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast and really giving us an intro into everything that Phantom Auto is doing and some of the incredible things that are going on in this world. Thank you so much once again for joining us here on the podcast.
Yep. Thank you, Tyler.
Absolutely. And everyone, thank you for tuning in to Ground Truth, a podcast from Phantom Auto. We appreciate it very much. Of course, stay tuned for future episodes of the podcast. And the best way to do that is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you can stay up to date with the latest in thought leadership and insights from the folks at Phantom Auto. Hear from more people like Jordan Sanders coming up very, very soon on the podcast. So stay tuned for that. But for this episode of the show, from my guest, Jordan, I've been your host, Tyler Kern. Thanks so much for listening.